Good evening. You're all very welcome to our 51st episode of Words on Whiskey. And delighted to you join us. And we have a very special guest with us today. We've someone who we have interviewed before in the magazine in issue number 5. I don't know if anybody has seen it, but we're talking again with Lisa Ryan, Distillery Manager at Royal Oak Distillery. And I suppose it would be fair to say that things have been relatively quiet from there over the last while. So we'll see with Lisa all the latest developments that are happening in Royal Oak. I know there's been a lot of changes there, and we'll have a chat and hopefully find out how it is to get into that kind of role and what exactly is happening at Royal Oak. So let's just get straight to it and welcome Lisa. Lisa, good evening.
Hi, Sergio. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Good. Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are you in the distillery there at the moment?
I am, yes.
Yeah.
You probably can see in the background there, yeah. The sun is shining. It's a beautiful evening.
Yeah, it is a lovely evening. And of course, it is one of the most picturesque distilleries out there for sure. I mean, the grounds are magnificent, just beautiful distillery. Yeah, it must be a joy going in there every day.
It is, absolutely. I'm here just over 4 years now, and the novelty never wears off. I remember when I started here initially, there's a sign on the way in. I don't know if you saw it or noticed it before when you were down, but it says, beware of squirrels crossing.
Yes, yeah.
And I've seen them. They do exist. I was like, no, really? But yeah, no, they do jump across. It's beautiful. It's a fabulous place to work. Yeah, I love it down here.
And of course, obviously, the last year and a bit has been a tricky one for everyone in terms of what's going on with COVID. Have you been going in a lot, or?
Yeah, so I suppose the last year and a half, we have been involved in an upgrade in the distillery. So we've put in some bells and whistles into the distillery. So moving from a totally manual plant to automation, and some other lovely kind of tweaks in there as well to allow us to play some tunes in the distillery. So we've been managing that between us, with various contractors coming and going, and keeping all our staff busy off site, and developing training plans for people from home, which was quite a challenge. Sure. So everybody got their own little kind of iPads, and they could access training programs and online learning from there. But we did it. We got through it, and we're commissioning at the minute. So yeah, it was a very, very challenging year. There's no doubt about it.
And is the commissioning close to being done, or?
We're making great progress. We've commissioned our malt and pot side, and we're working through our new grain production side now. So we're using Irish wheat on that, and we're just allowing the guys and the team to train up. So it's a continuous process that we've invested in, and we're just ramping that up slowly to allow people to train on it. So yeah, it's going really well.
Yeah, you're very passionate about using Irish farmers, local farmers, and local produce. Is the wheat local as well? And
yes,
as well as the barley?
I grew up on a farm in Carlow, and my dad is a grain grower, and my brother has taken over the family farm, and he's the same. We have the combine at home, and it's a big deal. I'm absolutely very passionate about using Irish cereal and supporting the Irish farming industry. I think it's a very important thing to be able to do and to be able to drive, and I'm very proud of the fact that we do support the Irish grain growers, and we're using Irish wheat and using Irish malt and barley also.
What was the decision to use wheat as opposed to maize, or is that just to support the local?
Yeah, well, I suppose the biggest driver that we always have here is quality, and yes, obviously one of the main drivers for me would have been to support the Irish. The Irishness of Irish whiskey, and to ensure that we're supporting that and making it as Irish as possible and supporting local. But also from our trials and what we have seen, it yields a much. We prefer it from a quality point of view, and we prefer the spirit that's produced from the columns here in Royal Oak. So I suppose it was kind of both of those elements together that really drove that decision. But with the plant initially was commissioned here on on maize. So we did have that to compare it to, but wheat is our preferred cereal of choice on the grain side. So yeah, it's working really well.
How does it differ actually? Is it a sweeter note of wheat?
It's a sweeter and it's more delicate. You know, and it'll be interesting to see now how it matures out in cask. We've seen some of it coming through, but yeah, a much lighter style of spirits. That's what we've seen.
Yeah, of course, you have the headache and the privilege, I suppose, of having pot stills and column stills there on site. So you will be bringing out. Well, you brought out a single malt, you brought out a blend, and you brought out a pot still and a single grain. So congratulations on that. That was a fairly quiet release, if you don't mind me saying, Lisa.
It was, and I mean, I think it was kind of deliberately done. So we have our 3 pot stills here, obviously in Royal Oak, and we have the columns as well, and so we have the ability to produce all 3-4 styles of spirit under one roof. So we have our single malt, our single pot still, our single grain, and our blend. And that was launched. I suppose COVID was a big challenge as well. You know, trying to launch a new whiskey in the middle of a global pandemic was a huge challenge. And a huge credit to our one of our guys here, Niall Bulger. He's our lead whiskey blender. He was in charge of that whole with a master blender in Scotland for the last 2 years, and so he was very busy putting all of that stuff together. But and that had its own challenges because of COVID. But
to bring it to really simultaneously was quite a feat. You know, never mind bringing that over the year.
Very bold, very brave, very different.
And
I think that was, you know, that's purposely done as well. It's like the whole goal of the Busker is to try and bring as many people into Irish whiskey as possible. And I mean, the look of it, the feel of it is I suppose it's different, and it's, you know, it's a bit out there, and some people like it, some people hate it. It's up to yourself, really. But we're really, really proud of the spirit that we have produced. Like if you just break the 4 of them down, like the starting with the single malt. For me,
there you go. There they are.
There you are. Thank you.
Small, but if anybody can see them.
How I break down flavors and how I interpret the different flavors, I kind of liken it to music. I played a lot of music in my youth. I don't have a whole lot of time to play music now, but I played guitar and piano, and so when I sit down and assess a spirit and, you know, pick out the different flavor notes, I kind of liken it to music. And for me, our single malt is the main melody in our range. It's a beautiful fruity, biscuity, lovely biscuity notes on it, and we're using sherry and bourbon casks on our single malt, and our taste is lovely, kind of a lovely rich full. There's some chocolate notes in there as well, and there's a lovely creamy finish on it. So it's a beautiful single malt. Like, we're a relatively young distillery, and you know, we are really, really proud of how that has turned out, and we're really proud of how it's been received as well. Our single pot still then is probably my favorite, and that's just purely because there's kind of, I would see the lighter notes and the kind of the refreshing kind of, you know, I would see it as being kind of invigorating. There's lots of kind of orange peel and citrus notes on the nose of it. And then the flavor, then obviously you have your deep, rich, intense spices as well. And again, that's another really beautiful spirit. We're using bourbon and sherry barrels on that one. And really happy with that. And then our single grain then, obviously from our wheat, and early on we used some maize, and we're using Marsala casks on our single grain, and we're sourcing those from Italy, actually. So from the parent company here.
Of course,
And I mean, that is a really lovely spirit as well, and I'd liken that to maybe the instrumental piece in a tune of music, in that it's light and it's standalone, but it's really elegant and simple. And Really happy with that as well.
Yeah.
And then into our blend, and our blend is beautiful also. I mean, we've got the mixture of our, our backbone of our single malt, the lovely light elements of our pot still, and then that sweetness that's coming through from our single grain. So there's a lot. I mean, there's a lot there. There's a lot of opportunity for people to try out different styles.
Absolutely, yeah.
And they're coming in at a pretty good, reasonable price point as well, which again,
they are approachable, and I think that makes a difference.
Yeah. So we're really happy with it. And we're kind of we obviously kind of launched into the US market initially, and we're looking at European markets now, and the UK and the likes of that. So yeah, it's going really well. We're really happy with it.
I mean, it's a bold, fresh branding, that's for sure. And
it is.
I've tried them all, but I have to say my favorite is the single malt and the pot still.
Okay, right.
Well, and I think they punch above their age.
Yes.
In terms of, because they are young, aren't they?
They are. No, they are. I mean, that's it. I mean, the distillery started in 2016. So to be fair, it's it's quite a young spirit and a young launch. But if if you sit down and compare that to something of similar age in the same category, they really do punch well above their weight. And we're very proud of what we've achieved.
Yeah, and you have achieved some awards there as well, which is great for.
We have, yes,
for
absolutely.
a first launch.
There. Thank you. Yes, yeah. No, we're very happy.
Tell me, what's the philosophy behind the brand and the philosophy behind the distillery? Is it to be adventurous, to be different, to push the boundaries a little bit, or is it to just experiment a little bit more as well?
Yes, I mean, it is. It's to be different. I mean, just like we are all, I suppose if you just look at the team that's involved here in Royal Oak, we all have an element of creativity about us, I think. Like I've mentioned there that, I would have played music myself. And so the senior management team now is made up of myself as distillery manager, and then Alan Dempsey is our general manager. Yes. And James Burke is our finance, and he looks after the supply chain as well. But we've all been involved in some way, shape, or form in music, and that creative element is very strong in the team as well. And obviously, you probably know that Woody has launched his own music, and he's becoming a rock star.
We should have had him do a performance.
Absolutely, he'd love it. Yeah, we'd never stop
performance halfway through. Yeah. No, it's great.
But I think that that's kind of something in your DNA, that you're willing to try new things, you're willing to push things out, and to be bold and to be different, and certainly that's what we want to lean on and to develop and to grow more. And we're very lucky to be working with a company like Ilva who are invested in that, and I mean, they built the distillery and helped built the distillery here in 2016 and spent a lot of money on it. It's a fabulous place. And then to come along a few years later to put more money in to allow us to do this and to play tunes and to, flex in for example, we've put some temperature control on our fermenters.
Yes, so you're telling me you got a conversion vessel, which is fantastic.
Yeah, so we have temperature control and fermentation, which would allow us to play some tunes there. We've changed our grain process to continuous, and we have converted our cooker that we were using in our grain process over to a mash conversion vessel. So that allows us to have some temperature stands in the conversion process and the kind of the brewing side of the house. Yeah. And obviously then we've done some changes to our columns, so that allows us to play a lot of tunes in terms of flavor and what we want to take out and what we want to leave in on those. So look, it's a massive investment, and given the year that was in it, and all of the challenges that businesses globally have faced, we're very lucky to be involved and to see that dedication from the company to drive on quality. Really, that's the number one driver.
Yeah, I'm always fascinated by how different people view flavor, and you mentioned there you view it musically. Some people view it in colors, some people in numbers, some people just purely by taste. But it's fascinating how people actually perceive taste and perceived.
it's funny, and I think everybody has their own little version of it. But for me, that's how I can make sense of it. And I was playing music from a very young age. I played the piano from, I think I was about 7 or 8, and I used to and I just get lost in it and get lost in the notes and the music, and it's the same with flavor for me, that you sit down and you kind of have to block everything else out and work your way through the different elements of what's been presented to your palate, and what memories that evokes. And it's just, that's how I identify flavor through the interpretation of music as well. It's just, it's funny, it's quirky.
So you have obviously you do have that artistic side, but if you go back to where it all started, Lisa, you went to you grew up on a farm, so I don't know how was that. What type of farm was it? Was it a arable or cereal?
Cereal, and we did have cows with dairy as well at one stage, but mainly cereal. Like, my dad was big into that side of farming, and so that was his passion, I suppose, really. So from a very young age, I would have been involved with the harvest. The harvest is a massive time of year, and I have great appreciation for the amount of blood, sweat and tears that goes into trying to get the proteins right for pork malt.
I'm sure.
And the heartache when they don't meet spec. And the appreciation of the whole process. So I grew up on a farm, and I suppose I was always interested in how things worked, and I was always experimenting at home with different things. And I remember as a child making up perfumes from flowers and that kind of stuff. I was always kind of sciencey. I love maths, I love biology, I love chemistry. So I studied science in UCD, and I loved chemistry. So I went on and did a kind of an honours degree then in DIT for a year and a half after UCD, and I actually preferred DIT. I just found it just much more hands-on. I
think those DITs are more hands-on.
I really, really enjoyed it. And even from a kind of a colleague's point of view as well, I keep in touch with those guys all the time, and I've lost kind of contact with people from UCD. So it's funny how it plays out. But I studied chemistry there, and then my first role then was actually in Irish Sugar in Carlow. I finished up college on a Tuesday, and I was working there on a Thursday, and I worked there for 2 campaigns. So we took in sugar beet, and I went traveling in between times. So I went to Peru, and did some voluntary conservation in Peru for a few months, and then I started in Bailey's, and that was my first kind of step into the drinks industry as such, and I've kind of stayed in that ever since. So I worked in Bailey's for 6 years. I started in quality control there, and kind of worked my way up into kind of a senior lab position there. And I moved from there then to the brewery in Kilkenny. So Kilkenny was owned, the brewery in Kilkenny was owned by Diageo, and it was brewing Budweiser under contract for Anheuser-Busch. And so I worked there for 6 years. We had quite a big lab team there. And that was where my passion for production and I suppose brewing industry, and I've learned so much there. That's where I really learned about flavor, really. Budweiser is one of the lightest beers in the world to produce, and so a lot of my job was tracking flavor compounds in the Budweiser and making sure that there wasn't too much in there. It's a light, fast, clean beer. So that was obviously the targets were very low, very high on that. So there was a lot of analysis. We had a team of 11 in the lab. I was in charge of the lab there. And we had 3 GCs in one of the labs. I don't know if you know what a GC is, a gas chromatograph. So how that works is that if you remember back to when you were in school and you put a blot of ink on a piece of paper, and the liquid is drawn up along the paper and all the colors separate, that's chromatography, and except for it's in liquid. And then gas chromatography is the same principle, but in gas, essentially. So what you're doing is taking a sample of your beer or your whiskey or whatever and putting it into a GC, and then you separate out all your flavor compounds, and you can tell then what, how much of whatever compound is there. So I learned about flavor and about fermentation and the brewing side of things,
which is so important, of course. I mean, we don't talk about it, that side of it, as much as I think we should, in terms of fermentation and distillation. A lot of talk is around the maturation, really, but
That's where your flavor originates from, really, isn't it? You know, your
Yeah.
fermentation and how long your fermentation is, and your temperatures of your fermentation, your different types of yeast, and you know, so obviously that's one of the things that we've invested here as part of the upgrade. So we will be playing a lot of tunes with that, hopefully in months to come.
Yeah.
So then I went from there then to the brewery in Waterford. So that was a Guinness brewery at the time.
Yes.
And I was working in the compliance role there. So it was a senior management position just in quality, environmental, and in health and safety. So looking after all of the compliance agenda there for that site.
Yeah.
And then a role came up in production. So I covered production there for a while, and then continuous improvement as well. And I think when I moved from the compliance side into production and continuous improvement, I just realized that's where I wanted to be. And I just loved that pace and that environment and the challenge of it. And so then Diageo decided to close their breweries back in 2013, I think it was. So they closed Kilkenny and they closed Waterford. And I took a year out, and I was kind of adamant that I wasn't going to go driving anymore. I was done with the, you know, commuting and all the rest. And I got a phone call from one of the electricians who used to work in Waterford, and he had met a guy called Mark Rainier, who had just bought the brewery in Waterford at the time. And he said, would you come down and meet this guy? And I was like, no, I actually don't want to drive. Like, I want a job somewhere in Carlow.
Right.
But I went down and met him anyway. And I just really liked what he was talking about and what he wanted to achieve and deliver and what he believed in. And I just said, whatever, I have to work with this guy. And so I worked with him and the team down there for just nearly 3 years. And then the opportunity came up in Carlow. I got a phone call from the team in Walsh at the time, and they asked me to come up for a chat. And I was like, no, I'm actually really happy where I am. But I came up for the chat anyway, and it was a difficult decision, but it was just a huge opportunity for me to move from double distillation single malt to triple distillation malt and pot here, and obviously the columns as well. And so I took that opportunity in 2017, and I've been here ever since. So it's
Can I ask you actually, since you were at Waterford, can I ask you where you stand on the terroir debate?
Yeah, I mean, I think what they have delivered and what they've done is amazing. I have huge respect for Mark and for the team down there. I think it's a fantastic story, whether it exists or not. It makes perfect sense to me that it does. And it's great to see them backing it up with science and with research. And I've met Dustin Herb, and I've introduced him to Mark, and I was involved heavily in all of that at the very start.
All right,
and
okay.
So I think it's brilliant. I think it's brilliant for the farming industry, and I think it was a very brave thing to do. So I have huge respect for them. It makes sense to me. It makes sense in the wine industry. So why not would it transfer over? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think they've certainly put their money where their mouth is anyway, that's for sure. And
No,
to invest in the research as well. I think the only question there is how big a role is the role,
and that's
at the
it,
end. And that's all.
exactly. And that's it. And you can probably debate that till the cows come home.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that in itself is a result, though, isn't it? I mean, if people are debating,
absolutely.
Then, I mean, fair play.
It's getting people talking about the
concept. Yeah. And ultimately, it's bringing more interest into Irish whiskey as a category, and that's just a good thing for everybody across the board, everyone. So I think it's all positive.
But you have a very technical background, a very scientific background, which is great for understanding the processes and perhaps more useful for troubleshooting, I would say, rather than necessarily saying you want to come up with a flavor. I mean, where is the line between science and art in the whole process, Lisa?
Yeah, I mean, an experience, I mean, really plays into it as well.
Sure.
I mean, ultimately, you'll have a plant and it's designed by a group of experts, and it's meant to run a particular way, and it's meant to deliver a particular style. And then you get the plant and you do what they tell you to do, and it's, maybe it is and maybe it isn't. So there's a lot of owning your own plant and owning your own distillery and working things out for yourself. And upskilling your team and letting them work through different issues. So yeah, production, that's why I love it. That's why I love production, is because it is very dynamic, and things do change, and you have a good harvest one year and you have a poor harvest the next year, and you have to get the same result out of a poor harvest versus a good harvest, and that's a huge challenge. But I love it. And yeah, I mean, where's the line? I don't know.
yeah.
I think you will fall back on what you've learned in college, and always draw from that on a daily basis. Yeah, you have to, because you're making decisions based on that, really. And so it's just a given. I mean, you have to have that level of understanding and training to be able to be equipped to make whatever decision you're going to make in a distillery. So
obviously,
it kind of goes hand in hand.
Obviously, the quality control, and that's, you talked about continuous improvement programs, and and my background is a manufacturing engineer, so I'm interested in this from that point of view as well. But where are the points which that are most critical along the process? So, is it at the point of harvest? Is it at the point of fermentation, or or distillation? Which is the most critical? Or do they all have to be?
It's all of the above. Yeah, if it was as simple as that, Sergio.
No, I know it's not simple. I know it's not simple. But...
No, it's everything. I mean, you are relying on your farmer to put the right amount of fertilizer onto the crop so that you do meet the specification for protein. And that it does come in within specification, and then that will allow you to get the best yield possible out of it. But also, you're not going to run into any sort of production issues or processing issues on that side of things. And then your own process. I mean, we have to have a whole rigorous process around intake and quality control, sensory evaluation on everything that comes in, before you use it, before you accept it in, and then at every stage of the process as you work through it. So every step of your process has to be controlled. Your temperatures have to be met. Your times have to be met. If they're not, why not? And what's the kind of what's the impact of that, and how do you rectify it? How do you follow through on it? So there's a huge amount of, I suppose, data that we would monitor on a daily basis. And one of the upgrades that we've put in here is a full software system to track everything. So everything that happens in the plant will go through a kind of an IT system, and we will get a number as such, so a temperature, a time, or pressure, into our own computer system that we can interpret, and we can go back and have a look and see, well, actually, what happened here, and why is this slightly higher or lower than it should be, or whatever. And now we have that ability to do that. And Aidan Knox, one of our guys here, he started here as a distiller very in the early days. He's progressed himself into that role, and he's project managing that for us. And so there's huge opportunity in here, and has been over the last kind of number of years, and so like it's just, I suppose, a very dynamic environment that we're working in.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a small operation. The last time we spoke, you were talking about 1.5 million liters of pure alcohol a year. Is that the number, or has it gone up since the upgrades, or?
No, like, it hasn't gone up since the upgrades. I mean, I suppose our capacity here is 2 million litres.
Right.
And the upgrades haven't significantly changed that in any way. I mean, like, the upgrade is driven by quality and consistency, and future-proofing the distillery and allowing us to innovate. That's the logic behind the upgrade. So 2 million litres is what we can produce to date. We do have capacity on our pots, that if we want to run them more, we have capacity. They're not running all the time. So if we invested in probably 3 or 4 washbacks, we would be able to increase our capacity there. But and that may be something we'll look at in another few years. But no, we're at 2 million at the minute.
Yeah, and tell me, do you plan to actually produce and distribute liquid for other companies, or is it just for your own source?
It's just for our own currently. Yeah. No, we've no plans at the minute to do it for anybody else. No.
Yeah, and of course the takeover, or the merger with Ilva, I think that was 2017, or is it 2019? I can't remember now.
19. Yeah,
19 when they came on board. And what did they bring to the party in terms of experience, and obviously distribution would be a huge thing with them. They've obviously got Disaronno, which is one of the world's top liqueurs in the world, and many other products actually they have as well. But what is it they brought really to?
Yeah, well, I suppose that they have been involved here from the very start, and they're a family-run business and a very large, a very successful business. And yeah, I mean, they have huge expertise in their R&D department in terms of their flavor development. They have a couple of wineries in Italy and Sicily as well. So yeah, they're a big player in the industry, I suppose, and they've delivered significant products to the market, like Disaronno Velvet has been released now with the Tia Marias, and they have their whole wine side of the business as well. So yeah, distribution is the big thing with those guys, and obviously they have this relentless drive for quality as well, and they're a family-run business, and to me, like, that resonates all the way through the business. And like, the team in Royal Oak here is very much like a family that people pull together and kind of make decisions quite quickly and move on, you know. So it's a very dynamic place to work, and very dynamic kind of environment, which is really exciting, and very happy to be part of it.
I mean, is there obviously Disaronno would give you access, or Il Disaronno will give you access to some wonderful wine casks as well. You mentioned the Marsala there, but are there other casks that might be of interest, and we might see some developments?
And I can't tell you anything else.
No, that's
no, yeah, you're right, absolutely. I mean, that's it's a great opportunity, and we do have some casks currently that we're trialing out. We're working with our direction from our master blender, John Ramsey, in Scotland. He's actually he's been working with Niall here on site as well. So yeah, we have a number of casks being trialed at the minute, and so we're closely monitoring those and see how they are going to mature out. But yes.
Are you maturing on site?
We're not. No, we don't. We do have permission for warehouses here, but we don't have any warehouses on site. No.
Yeah. No, I remember seeing all the empty casks out the back, so I didn't know if there would be any.
Yes.
So the capacity is huge. Obviously we probably shouldn't ignore the fact that the distillery was set up with Bernard Walsh in 2016, 2015, and officially opened in 2016, I think. And then the merger happened, which of course facilitated the building of and completion of the distillery itself. I mean, that must have been a difficult time when they went their own ways, and we won't get into why it happened or whatever. But what was the differences and what were the challenges during the? Obviously, it would have been a difficult time.
I mean, it was a difficult time, and I have huge respect for Bernard and Rosemary and the team in Walsh Whisky, and I'm still very, very much friends with the guys that I worked with there, John Griffin and John Kelly and Claire, of course, as well. But it was difficult. There's no doubt about it. But it was a difference of opinion, really. At the end of the day, and it just wasn't going to work. It looked like it should have been the perfect, kind of marriage or whatever. But it just didn't work. And it hasn't damaged us or them in any way. And I have huge respect for them. And they're going from strength to strength. And you just have to kind of, I suppose, figure it out and move on and adapt, really. But we just wish them the best. And
but even from the branding point of view, you can see that their vision was very, very different.
Yes.
So I mean, that's a fundamental, that there's not really a compromise on something like that. So
just a very different perspective, really, and it's it is very obvious, but there's reasons behind it, and there's justifications behind it, and so that's, I suppose, that's ultimately why the demerger happened, really.
Is it challenging to, if you like, get out of the shadows, if you like, of being Walsh Whisky Distillery and now re-emerge as Busker series or whatever the brand you want to go, or independent Royal Oak? Has that been difficult?
Yes, I suppose it has, really. I mean, like, I suppose from our own sort of perspective here, all of that was going on all above kind of the day-to-day job, and the day-to-day job still has to get done. And so, I mean, we've been incredibly busy here for the last number of years, whatever it is, 3 or 4 years. And so the focus was that it was hitting our yields, hitting our quality, hitting our targets. And we did busy ourselves a lot with that because we just had to get on with things, And I suppose, whiskey is a long game, and we're here for the next, hopefully 20, 30, 40 years, whatever. So we're busy putting our roots down here in Royal Oak and getting our house in order, hitting our yields, hitting our quality, upskilling our team. We do a lot of work with Carlow IT, and that's really where I see the future of kind of Irish whiskey, and people going in there and upskilling, and I work very closely with Blaze and David Ryan in there just to help them out.
They do a fantastic job.
Amazing job. And we have one of their students in here, Stephen. He's been working here for the summer, and brilliant guy. And so we're very lucky to have that right on our doorstep, and that's kind of I'm really passionate about that, and that's the future of the industry, and we want to help that and support that as much as possible. So whenever possible, we invite those guys in here, and it gives our own guys an opportunity to share what they have learned. I mean, a lot of the guys that started here, some of them would have come from the likes of Diageo, and they would have background in brewing, but some of the guys didn't have any experience at all, and they've kind of really stepped up and into new roles. And our middle management group has really thrived and grown over the last few years, which is fantastic. So it's just there's a lot of opportunity here. There's a lot going on this site as well. So we've been very busy, even though it looks, I suppose, from the outside that we've been extremely.
Yeah, you've been quiet on the outside. Yeah, you've been quiet on.
But I know haven't had time.
Yeah, no, and I've tried to reach you a few times, and I know you're so busy as well. But I mean, it's great for the students, particularly studying down in Carlow IT. Do you take any from the Waterford side as well, or is that covered?
I have been in contact with a guy when I was in Waterford, but it really is it's mostly Carlow that we've been working with for the last couple of years. But I mean, we're open to take students from anywhere. I mean, it's all upskilling, and it's positive for the industry across the board. So yeah, I mean, if people are looking for opportunities, there's plenty.
Yeah, you remind me, you were talking about the gas chronometer, and
yes.
I remember being in school, spilling ink on my shirt and going home, and my mother didn't appreciate that part of the science at the time. Yeah, the science, but different time. But I mean, it gives the students. I'm sure a lot of what they do is very theoretical. It gives them a chance to put in practice the theory and see what happens.
And that's the thing. I mean, I know myself when I preferred the GIT to UCD just because of the practical element, and that's how I learn myself. It's you can give me a book, but if you can send me down to a plant and give me the tools to drive, I learn so much easier by doing rather than sitting in front of a book. And I think that brings things to life for students in Carlow IT, and I've been in there a couple of times just doing a couple of lectures, and they've said that when you break it down and when you can get in and see actually physically what's happening in the distillery, everything just kind of comes together. So yeah, look, it's great to be part of that, and we'll continue to support that as much as we can in the future.
Yeah, I think I've said it before on the show. You can't learn football from a book. So I mean, that's kind of the analogy. But tell me, as a distillery manager, I mean, you've seen the whole process from the basic chemical and not the basic chemical analysis, the advanced chemical analysis, right through to. I presume you cover everything from procurement to delivery to quality control to staff, I'm sure, as well, and staffing. What's a typical day, or is there a typical day for you?
Well, I did. Right. That's what I was saying about the kind of middle management team growing. So I was doing kind of everything.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty chaotic. So now we have a new girl that's after starting in. She's Dion. She's going to manage all the kind of the raw material ordering and taking some of that. We have a compliance manager here as well, Maureen Oakes, who's she used to work in Diageo also, so she's looking after kind of the compliance elements of it.
Yeah.
But a typical day would be probably coming in and looking at what happened in the previous 24 hours, and then go through all your results and look at your performance and your key performance indicators and your trackers, and checking in with the guys, making sure everyone's okay. And we're doing a lot of training at the minute, so it's very busy at the minute. We have 3 kind of super users who are taking the lead on the handover piece from the plant upgrade, and so they're training on everything at the minute, and then they're hoping to upskill the rest of the team. So I mean, the biggest asset that we have here is our people, and to make sure that they are equipped to do their job is my job. And you know, I take that very seriously, and I really want them to be able to achieve and to grow and to learn more and to develop themselves. And if I'm doing that, then I'm doing my job. And you know, it's a very diverse, challenging role, but I love it, and I there's no 2 days the same, really.
Do you get to try the whiskey every day?
Yes, as much as possible. Yeah, no, we have a sensory panel that we review our new make spirit. It's not every day; it's probably every second day. But we have about 6 people trained on sensory. So yeah, that's a really key.
How difficult is it to get staff actually now? I know, the industry obviously growing so quickly. So many new distilleries.
Well, that's it. I mean, there's lots of movement going on now between distilleries, which is a good thing and a bad thing. And that, I don't want to lose anybody. But I was up at Finon's sensory session there in DCU recently, and I was talking to Laura and to Laura Heamy and Noel Sweeney, and they were having a bit of banter around some person that had moved from one distillery to the other, and that's the way it's going to be. It's you'll come in and you learn, and then you can obviously move on. And so there's huge amount of movement in the industry at the minute, and there's huge amount of opportunity. And even just in our own team, as I said, like we have just recently promoted Dave Fahey. He's one of the distillers that was here from the very start, but he's now moved into a continuous improvement role. So we have to backfill his role now. But again, he's upskilled. He's learned the plant. So this is a natural progression for him, which is brilliant, and it's great to be able to do that. And it's great that the business are investing in people. So long may it continue. But it's challenging, and I know, like, I've been on to kind of the likes of the Carlow ITs to see, if there are any people there, but they've all kind of got jobs, which is fantastic as well, So it's it's going to be, I think, it's going to be a challenge over the next while. Like, we have the likes of the pharmaceutical companies to compete with as well, and obviously with the vaccines and the likes of the big Pfizers, that they're taking on an awful lot of staff because obviously they have to react to this demand, and so that is a big challenge. But I know myself, once I got into the drinks industry, I'd never leave it. I just love it. And you're kind of
Did you have a fondness for more the process, or were you also a fond drinker? How can I put this nicely? I'm trying to figure the right way of putting it politically correctly. But
my brothers are always saying, "You've made a career out of drinking. Like, how did you manage that?" No, I mean, it's a lot to do with the people as well. I mean, I like a lot of my friends that I've made through the various places I've worked are my best friends now. Like, and I mean, I probably wouldn't see them from one end of the year to the next, but they would. So it's the colleagues and it's the network that you kind of build up as well. I mean, I love coming into work, and it's and a lot of that is because of who I'm working with. That you can't take yourself too seriously. We all have a job to do, and that's all fair enough. But you don't take yourself too seriously. So there's an element of that as well. There's a really nice network, and I'm sure you're very well aware of it as well in brewing and distilling industry. And there's a real sense of support as well. I remember when I started here initially, and Bernard was involved with IDL with the support through the Irish Whiskey Association. And we had kind of gone down a couple of times to IDL, and to the likes of Brian Nation and Billy and all of the guys down there, Dave, and they just would give you so much time. And I remember when I started in Scotland or in Waterford as well, Mark wanted us to go over and do some training over in Scotland because he had some connections over there with the likes of Brookladdy and a few other distilleries, Glen Grant, and you just go over and spend weeks over there at a time, and they just shared everything. You know,
Yeah, it is
and
amazing.
so it is amazing. Yeah, like
there's not many other
and so,
sectors where you see that kind of a level of collaboration between.
No, exactly. There's nothing, there was nothing covered up or hidden, or it was just, whatever you need, we'll help you out type thing. So it's just a lovely industry to be part of and to work in, and I'd love to be able to do the same for anybody who would need any sort of support at all. So no, it's I just love it.
You mentioned that sensory panel tasting that you did with as part of Fionnuala's PhD as well. Obviously, you got to meet a lot of your peers. What was that like?
That was great. Oh my God, that was such a great day. After the year and a half that we're after putting in, this is like, wow, getting up to meet people and having lunch and having a chat and like tasting whiskey all day and talking about it. I mean, sure, it's the perfect day.
I mean, how much do you share and how much do you learn from the other distillers? And
you learn a huge amount, because everybody has a different way of tasting, and I might be blind to something and somebody else could pick it up and vice versa, and it's really interesting to have that conversation and to have that openness and to share that. I mean, what Fionnuala has done is so interesting, and I mean, I suppose when you're not used to tasting that particular type of new make, it can be a challenge. You're used to your own new make. You know what you want. You know what you don't want, or whatever. So I mean, not to know what was in the mash bills was, that was a challenge, and it was really interesting to sit down and try and figure it out and try and work it out. And he's since sent out samples to everybody and told them what the differences, what they are.
He's told you. He hasn't told me yet.
So I want to obviously share that with the team here and sit down and break it all down and do the sensory here as well. It's a brilliant day. Really well done.
I mean,
really well.
Are you able to take some of that and lead into experimentation of what you do there? I mean,
hopefully. Yes. Yeah. I mean, I'm just at the very tip of that iceberg. I mean, there's a huge amount of information and there's a huge amount of work that he's after doing, and I can't wait to see the findings from what he's done. But I mean, why not? If it's interesting and it's different and it's it's good, why wouldn't you? Like, it's great. It's a great piece of work. It's amazing.
If we were to go back to the branding and then Busker and what Ilva Serrano are trying to achieve, what are their predominant markets in terms of demographics of people, and then what regions are the hot ones for yourselves?
I suppose the real market that they're focusing on is the US market, and focusing on kind of the probably 25 to 35 age group, and tapping into that, and that's where they've hit the hardest, and then after that, then just branching into the markets in Europe and into the UK. So I mean, it's going to be and it has been a challenge with COVID, but they have a huge distribution network, and Woody is heavily involved in a lot of the tasting sessions, and he's doing a lot of work late at night setting up tastings for the States and that. So he's been really well received.
Does he play the music as well during the tasting?
He's so funny. He's a guitar hanging up behind him, and all he wants is for somebody to suggest, play us an old tune there, Woody. And then he'll be gone the whole night.
And in terms of the distillery, because it is such a beautiful distillery to go and visit, when will it be open again for visitors? Will it be this year or next? Or
it'll be next year, I think, realistically. And I suppose that probably does suit us a little bit in that we're still commissioning, and we just want to get the plant ticking over nicely before we invite people back in. It's hard to know, really. I mean, probably maybe March, April of next year sometime. That might make sense to kick all that back off again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're not going to get many people, I suppose, in the horrible, cold, damp winter.
Exactly.
Coming down the place does deserve the good weather as well.
Yes. Yeah. It's nice in the snow as well, though, I have to say.
I haven't made it that far there yet. No.
You'll have to come
the
down.
Squirrels. I want to see the squirrels. That's
you have to, That's only early in the morning. That's probably about 10 to 7 maybe. You'll see the squirrels. So you'll have to come in early, Sergio.
That's not me then. But I'll have to. No, not an early person. But look, I mean, you've reached, if you like, the pinnacle of what you can do as a a distiller and as a chemist in terms of, managing a distillery. And what was it like in the early years? Obviously, you started 20 years ago, more or less, in the industry, without getting too much into
Making me
numbers.
feel old now. Thanks.
Well, I should be making you feel young.
Yeah.
But I mean, obviously, the Irish economic climate was weak then, and an industry which, let's be honest, was very male dominated. What was it like breaking into that as a young woman at the time, and even doing technical subjects?
Yeah, and I think back to when I was in the brewery in Kilkenny. I mean, everything was just going south in terms of sales. I mean, it was so different. And I mean, Diageo were kind of sending out the message that they were going to be closing breweries and they had to consolidate, and it was a lot of cost saving, and it was kind of very heavy and negative, really. And then when I moved to Waterford, then kind of something, kind of similar. I mean, yeah, it is a really male-dominated industry, and I would never let that stop me from doing what I wanted to. I've worked with really, really good people, and I've really, really good team and really good support. And so it doesn't make a difference. You just get in and do your job and just get on with it. I mean, it shouldn't make a difference in it, and it doesn't. I mean,
no, it shouldn't. It shouldn't,
no.
certainly. But do you feel a sense of what's the word? Responsibility? Not responsibility. Well, obviously, young girls, young women, should get great encouragement for the achievements that you've reached, and obviously, it's great to see more women reaching strong positions within the industry, and I guess that's happened over the last 10, 15 years. Do you see that change, and do you see the momentum?
I do. No, I
keep
do.
going
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
way?
Yeah, I know I do. I do, and I think it's positive, but you do have to just get out there and make your own opportunities as well. If you're in an industry or you're in a job or you're in a role that it's not working for you, you're not getting, for whatever reason, you're not progressing, you just have to find somewhere that you will progress and you will be respected, and it does work out then for you. I mean, I've been very, very lucky with the people that I've worked with, and the people I've met along the way that have always had my back as such, and allowed me to grow and move on to the next step. I'm very happy in the role that I'm in now, and I'm happy to stay in the role I'm in now for hopefully a good number of years. I have 3 boys at home. Liam, Shay, and Mark. Liam is 12, Shay is 10, and Mark is 8, and that's a full-time job on top of my full-time job.
Well, I'd imagine, and of course they were home all this time during COVID, I presume.
Yes, yeah. So
your junior maths has got readdressed, and then you're
yes. I've become an expert with Seesaw and all these apps that we had to upload the homework on. But and that's really important. They're at a really important age, and I want to be able to enjoy my role here and be with them and bring them to hurling and bring them to football and whatever else other events that they're.
So you're based back in Carlow now, so you're back in your hometown, and you're obviously it's great to be back home. And
it is. No, it's fantastic. And I worked in Dublin, I worked in Waterford, I worked in Kilkenny, and as the kids were growing up, I was always in work in the mornings. I never dropped them to the crash. My husband always did that, and now I get to drop them to school and I get to have the chat with them in the mornings, and that's a huge deal,
Of course, and you get to see them in the evening when you're not being kept late on a Wednesday evening.
Well, they're playing football this evening, so they're not home.
I'm just looking at the scenery there behind you. The scene in the background is sun setting in the background. I think you must have just scheduled it deliberately.
I did, planned it. I'm great at planning things. Yeah,
you chose to play. Yeah. Well, what's the future then in terms of new releases? Kevin here asked a good question, and he's asking if you plan to do double distillation and/or peated.
Maybe we are. I don't know about double distillation, but I mean, we probably would investigate the peated element of it. I love peated whiskey, so I mean, it's we have a lot of finishing to do on our commissioning. So once we have kind of all of those things up and running, then we will look at probably different innovations. But I wouldn't rule it out.
Yeah. So are you actually producing at the moment, or are you?
Yeah.
You are actually producing at the moment.
Yeah.
Not at full capacity.
Not at full capacity. No. We're hoping to ramp up towards the end of this month. Just assuming everything goes okay with training and people are happy and competent and confident that they can run the plant, then we'll ramp up slowly. Yeah.
Yeah. What would you like to try? Is there anything that you can talk? I know you can't talk about anything.
No, I can't.
Tell me.
No, so stop asking.
what would you like to do in the future? What kind of areas?
The fermentation and yeast is really where I'd like to experiment and to see what level of flavor you can produce in there, and how can you push it, and how far can you push it, you know. I think there's huge opportunity there, and we do have, with the columns as well, we do have a lot of opportunity to play with those. So yeah, like the plant is really set up now to allow us to do all of those things, and the software and the intelligence is there to tell us, you know, how things are progressing. And so yeah, I mean, we have our own lab on site as well, and we have our own GC, so we can tell straight away what the impact of whatever change we have made. So it's really exciting, to be honest with you.
I mean, the GC and all the equipment, I think probably what they offer most is the ability to be consistent and predictably consistent, rather than, you know, there's the romantic notion of a fully manual distillery, but you know, in terms of creating consistency and reproducibility, it's important to have that level of automation. But I mean, it still goes through a human factor at the end of the day, doesn't it?
It does, yeah, it does. I mean, we have the choice in terms of the different styles of whiskey that we have, you know. So if you don't want to try your single malt, you can try your single pot still, and the grain and the blend. And so that's where your choice is. And hopefully we will be releasing different innovations from Royal Oak, potentially under Royal Oak, in the future. But that's a really important thing for me as well. I mean, the consistency and delivering. If somebody buys a bottle and they like it and they want to go buy a second bottle, they want the same standard to be reproduced. Obviously, I know I would. And so that's one of the drivers behind what we've done here, and that's what we continuously try and achieve. And we know what we want in terms of our spirit quality, and we know what our, like, if we do our sensory score, our sensory assessment on a Tuesday, and we're given our marks of 100%, it's because we've followed everything, and everything is done the same way, and that's our target as such. And that's really important to keep that level of consistency, so that you don't disappoint your consumers and your customers.
Yeah. Is there a DNA that runs through all of them? Is there, you know, a fingerprint that's
yeah, there definitely is. Yeah, definitely. I mean, when we're on malt production at the minute, but when we're on pot still, we generally run our spirit still in the mornings. And so if you come in early, you're still on the spirit run, and you go down and take a sample from your safe and the spirit safe. And I always get a pine and a kind of a really uplifting pine citrus note off our pot still, always.
I got a lavender note off it for some reason.
Yeah, I get lavender as well. Yeah.
No, it is distinctive.
Yes, it is. Oh, it is. It's very distinctive, yeah. And our single malt is very distinctive as well. And it's the essence of Royal Oak. That's what it is. And you know, it's up to us to keep, as for me as the custodian of quality here in the distillery, to make sure that we constantly achieve that, and that everybody is aware of what we're trying to achieve, and they're aiming for that all the time.
Yeah. And do you see in the future doing one-off releases at all?
Yeah,
is that a possibility?
I wouldn't rule it out. Yeah.
I can't ask directly. But
No. Look, we have loads of opportunity. That's the bottom line.
Yeah. What do you make of the Irish whiskey market? The growth that's happening in there. Do you think it's sustainable? And do you think it's something that's
hard? Isn't it hard to know? Like, it's hard to know. I mean, it's fantastic. Like, I mean, like, or hopefully it continues, but it's really, really difficult to predict. Now, having said that, the kind of the millennials and the people that I know of that age, like 20s to 30s, 35s, are willing to try new, but they're willing to invest and to try, you know, new whiskies. I mean, there's a huge following on whiskey in general, not just Irish whiskey. So I think it's a very exciting category to be involved in. You know, I mean, just having come from brewing when it was under pressure, I'm very lucky to be involved in it.
Yeah, there's a question in here from Big Al runs his own podcast there, Whiskey Straight. If the quality is consistently good, but there are variances in smell and taste, is that okay? I think it's a question more than a statement.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we have a target that we want to hit. You will from time to time get variations from batch to batch. And yeah, some maybe like what you said there, Sergio. So you're picking up elements of a lavender note, and I might pick that up, and somebody else might not pick that up. But you're relying on a sensory panel. You're not relying on one person, so it's a sensory panel to evaluate a spirit quality, and it's an agreed decision. So I mean, I could give it a score of 95%, you could give it a score of 90, and it'll averages out. But it, we have a pass fail rate, so if there's something majorly wrong with it, then we will redistill it. But that's it's never happened.
Yeah. What else is in the pipeline for the future that you can? Obviously, you're going to solidify what you have in terms of the equipment, and I mean, how long does it take to learn your equipment? Instinctively, I guess, rather than
it depends on your equipment, really. I mean, a batch process. We've two very, very different processes. We have a batch process, which is very easy. Very easy. And we have a continuous process. So continuously milling, continuously heating, continuously cooking, continuously fermenting, and continuously distilling. That is a challenge.
Yes. Yeah.
So yeah, look at it. It takes as long as it takes. You're going to have different startup issues and shutdown issues, and you learn from those issues. And I mean, it could take up to 6 months to properly know and refine a process. It could take you 6 weeks. It just depends on the process. But you just have to be really invested in it, and you're relying on your team. I mean, one of our guys here, Barry Cahill, he's our engineering and maintenance manager, and he started here as a distiller. And he knows the plant inside out and upside down, because he's invested in it, and he wants to know it. So it's so it probably take somebody like him a very short period of time to get to understand and to know the plant as such. So it depends on the person as well.
I mean, is it like running two distilleries, having the columns?
Yeah.
Is
pretty much
almost two separate distilleries?
Yes.
Yeah. And where does the blending happen?
The blending happens after maturation, so everything is separated. Yeah, everything's separated out and filled into cask separately, and then we decide then based on, so every single barrel is sampled and sensory evaluated, and then a blending plan will be put together based on that sensory evaluation. So a huge amount of work goes into putting all of those elements together.
Yeah. What are you most looking forward to over the next while, other than the COVID coming to an end? I'm looking forward to that coming to an end.
I can't wait for some sort of normality. But I suppose here in the distillery itself is getting to this famous steady state point in time where we have everything taken over and everybody's trained, and we're running steadily. We're in a position then to invite people back into the distillery and take time to share what we have invested in here in the distillery, and just like I really miss not having people around, and people are just so good and so interested and just want to learn about what we're doing here, and that kind of human connection. I think everybody has felt it this year. I mean, it's just so difficult to lose that, and I'm really looking forward to that element of Royal Oak kind of.
Well, you're a big part of the community there as well. You've always given back in terms of either whether it's sponsoring students or sponsoring artwork or holding exhibitions in the distillery. It must be difficult not to see that kind of life back in the place.
No, it is completely, and that's, I think that's the big, Alan, our general manager, like he has huge plans for the distillery in the coming years, and to really to nail that side of things, and just invite people back in and make it a kind of a destination and experience for whiskey lovers and people who not necessarily know anything about whiskey, but just to bring them on board, and I suppose just go back to the Busker, that's ultimately what that whole brand is about. It's about inviting new people into the category. And
Yeah.
look, we're all very passionate here about what we do, and really feel strongly about that. So that's, I suppose, the next kind of few years.
One more question in here from this is a question. How much reliance is put on science and how much on experience and gut feel when blending? So blending, I suppose, would be different.
It's probably experience is one of the big key things there. And that's the main. Obviously, you're relying on your theory and your knowledge as well, but experience is probably the most important part of putting blends together, I think.
Yeah. I mean, you've covered all aspects of the production in terms of where you've worked. I suppose you haven't done coopering or anything like that, have you?
No,
not yet.
Don't plan to either.
Not yet. No. I mean, is sourcing barrels becoming an issue, or is that made easier now with big bagging?
We did have. I remember back in, was it 2017? There was huge kind of shortage on barrels, and we had, I suppose, it kind of the COVID and the shutdown here kind of worked in our favor in that respect, and that we were shut down for a period of time. We were shut down for just 3 months, I think. And so we weren't relying on barrels to hit the shores on time and that kind of thing. So we haven't been affected by that. That's not to say that there's no issues, but we certainly haven't seen any delays in our deliveries or anything like that.
Yeah. Listen, I'll try and catch you before the sun actually goes down behind you. I forgot how nice it was out there. Yeah.
I know, you'll have to come down.
I did come down, like I said, I think about a year ago, and there was no sign of visitors. There was a bit of, I could hear the noise and I could smell things and hear things. You know, but I probably shouldn't have been down. But I will be down again for sure. It'll be great to come. Just other than all this, looking after 3 boys, the husband and the distillery and all the staff and all that. What do you like to do? And do you travel? Do you read? Do you? How do you unwind?
We have a dog. I go walking with my dog. As I said, I do take up the guitar every now and then when I have a few minutes and play. But yeah, I mean, my kind of, I'm obviously very busy in work, but my passion obviously is my kids and being on a sideline. I'm literally on a sideline every night of every week, and Saturday and Sundays, like my kids play hurling and football, and so there's 3 guys with 3 matches every weekend. So my husband, so I mean that's my life and I love it, and very lucky to have those 3 little men in my life. So I mean that's kind of, you know, things are just centered around that. It is quite difficult to have any time for yourself, really, but you know. You just
any plans to take a break at all this summer or go anywhere?
We were away. We went to Galway last week. So that was lovely.
Gosh, the island's going to lean over that direction. Everybody keeps on going out west.
Everyone's heading over there. Yeah, it was lovely. So nice. So nice to get away. Well,
I'm sure it's been really well. I mean, I know you've been up to your neck and working very hard, and it's amazing. I mean, in a way, the COVID situation gave you a chance to really focus on 100% on getting the plant right, reskilling the team and all the rest. I mean, you wouldn't wish it, but you have taken advantage of it.
It did actually really work really well in our favor. And to be fair, I mean, when all this COVID stuff kicked off, Alan just got into gear straight away and just put all of these structures in place from a crisis management point of view. And so the team was really well equipped to deal with whatever, because we all kind of had our various roles to look after. I was kind of the coordinator of things, and we had a communicator, and so we kind of all fell into that very, very early on, and we luckily we didn't have any issues. We did take a decision at one point in time to reduce down our production to half capacity just very early on, because we were worried somebody might get sick, and we kept some of our guys in reserve at home just in case they did get sick, and nobody got sick. So we ramped back up production. So I mean, it's been a very challenging year, but look at.
Well, there you go. So if you don't want to catch COVID, there you go. Work in a distillery with all the all the alcohol everywhere, you'll be perfectly safe.
Sorted.
Look, Lisa, I'm delighted you got to talk. Because like I said, it was kind of we're kind of worrying what happened to Royal Oak. It was going very quiet.
We're still here.
So it's nice to get insight. And
well,
looking forward.
Thank you for having me.
And look, I mean, it's a fantastic your story of reaching where you have, and just on a personal level as well, getting to be back home, have the work-life balance right,
No,
and
I'm very lucky.
yeah, so
Very lucky.
inspiration to many people there. So thank you very much for joining us. Wish you the very best of luck,
Thank you.
Lisa,
Talk to you
with the
soon.
rest. Yeah, and have a good evening.
You too. Thank you.
Take care. Bye
See you.
bye.
Bye. Bye.
Well, I hope you got a bit of an insight there into what's happening down in Royal Oak. It's obviously been fairly quiet, but we've got a good insight into what's happening, and I'm sure when everything opens up and they're back in full production, we'll get to learn a lot more. And Lisa's a fabulous, inspirational character and really brought a lot to that business. And so we thank her for her time. So I hope you enjoyed the show. If you have, please do give us a like or a follow on the platform. Next week we have, I was going to say an independent bottler. They're not an independent bottler, but we'll reveal who our guest is towards the end of this week. And he has an interesting view of the industry from his side. And thank you very much for joining us. Have a good evening. Stay safe, and we'll catch you all soon. Slàinte.